Hey everybody, so remember a few days ago when I said that I wasn't going to make another video till I got to Japan? Just kidding. So unless you've been living under a rock the past few days, you've probably heard that a variant of the coronavirus that is apparently, but not proven to be more transmissible, has emerged in the UK, which led around 40 governments around the world, including Japan's, to put a temporary but indefinite ban on foreigners arriving from the UK. So that's the bad news. The worst news that I just read on several UK websites is that apparently a similar but different, same but different variant that has been found in South Africa has also arrived in the UK. And this worries me for two reasons. The first, hi Parker. This is my sister's dog, Parker, my dog nephew. He's the apple of my eye, and he's the thing I'm gonna miss most when and if I go to Japan. Hi, Parker. He wants to be part of the video. Well, that's fine. At any rate, what worries me most about the second variant is not the underlying epidemiology, because in spite of what the media would have you believe, scientists have not proven in a lab or otherwise that either of these variants is more transmissible. There's a possibility, for example, that the increase in transmission and the dominance of these variants in the infection profiles of each country is actually due to behavior and not due to the inherent increased transmissibility of the variants. Moreover, nothing has suggested so far that either of these will result in more severe disease or that they will evade the antibody response provided by the vaccine and monoclonal antibody therapies. So epidemiologically, I'm actually not especially worried about this. What I am worried about is that as we saw back in March and April with countries slamming their borders shut, long after the virus had arrived on their shores, by the way, which, sidebar, this variant in the UK was discovered in September. I believe the South African one can be traced back to then as well. This is probably already all over the world, including in Japan. But this is a knee-jerk political reaction that keeps the masses appeased. It makes leaders feel like they're doing something, but it actually is not going to change the game. Except to wreck the lives of people that need to move around the world. And so I would say first and foremost that my heart goes out to anyone in the UK right now who is supposed to be entering Japan in the coming days or weeks and might not be able to now. You know, I'm not in the same boat yet being in the United States. I might, and more on that in a second. But obviously I've been in this position for the past 9 months, so I empathize with you. I hope the scientists can expedite the research on this so that these bans can be removed and, if necessary, replaced with science-based directives, such as PCR tests that specifically target this mutation, you know, perhaps enhanced or even lengthened quarantine. But the fact is that if you need to travel at this time, you should be able to. Freedom of movement is a human right. And I'll be talking more about that in future videos if this ends up going in the direction I think it does. And on that note, I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about is, and I say this not to alarm anybody, but given the fact that these variants are almost certainly in other countries and potentially in the majority of countries, I think it is almost definite at this point that more countries will be banned from international travel, most notably South Africa, but also potentially Italy, Australia, and anywhere else where this variant, or these variants rather, because there's two now, of the virus can be sequenced. Because again, none of this is based on science. This is based on media hysteria. This is based on politicians pandering to the masses who, let's face it, one of the base instincts of the masses all around the world is xenophobia and blaming foreigners for problems within a country. And my fear is that before science comes in once again to save the day, politicians are going to make the same grave errors they made back in March and April. Now, obviously, the most pessimistic version of this would be for Japan to basically go back to how things were before September 1st, where all foreigners were banned from entering indefinitely and for any reason. Now, I'm not yet that pessimistic. It's not that I haven't thought about it. I've thought about it and I'm terrified of it. And I think that it is possible. I don't think it's likely at this point because, as I've said throughout many of my videos, I do think Japan's pathological obsession with holding the Olympics in spite of everything that's going on will keep them from a full moratorium on immigration. Because politically speaking, I don't see how they say, well, because of this variant that may or may not be more transmissible and that's almost certainly not more dangerous, we need to close our borders at a moment's notice. But don't worry, they're going to be wide open for the Olympics and you can come on in. I don't see how that works. And granted, I know they have friends in high places. I know the IOC is going to cover for them. But I think when you combine the antipathy towards the Olympics on the ground in Japan among Japanese citizens with how unenthused people around the world, with the exception of, I guess, some of the athletes, are for the games, I don't see how Japan fully closes its border, unless, of course, scientists do come back in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and say, actually, this virus is significantly more transmissible. And one of the two things, number one, that it is more dangerous, or number two, that it evades antibody response from the vaccine. And that's a big if. I don't think either of those things is going to happen. And none of the scientists I read have suggested that either. What I do think is likely in the short term is I do think other countries are going to be added to this exclusion list, right? Because almost all countries are technically banned from entering Japan. But what has happened is because of this global resonance track program, there's been an exclusion for people coming for certain reasons, basically with medium and long-term visas. And what I think is most likely to happen is I think South Africa will be excluded, probably within the next day or two. And then if significant amounts of the virus are found to be circulating in countries where it's been sequenced, such as Italy, Australia, I think they said there was some in Iceland, I don't know. And then you have to assume that it's in the United States, Mexico probably. I mean, it's probably all over at this point, but France, I mean, right across the water from the UK. I guess my fear, though, is that even if Japan doesn't do an outright moratorium on foreign immigration again, it could very quickly cascade out of control. And again, I am not saying this to alarm or scare any of you. I just think that we need to be clear-eyed about what could happen based on what has happened in the past. As for me, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm going to really carefully monitor the situation. And I have to be honest, there's a possibility that if more countries start getting added to the ban list in rapid succession. So for example, if by next Monday, any country other than South Africa has been added to the ban list, I might just go ahead and fly to Japan early. You know, I already have my visa. My quarantine's arranged starting on the 7th of January. But I am someone who believes that it is better to ask for forgiveness and not for permission. So what I would probably do is I would arrange an alternate quarantine to begin at an earlier date. And then after I'm safely in Japan, contact my school and tell them I need a refund of the one they arranged for me. But yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself with that because we really don't know what's going to happen. It's the middle of night in Japan as I'm making this. And I guess the earliest we would know any more developments is at the morning press conference of the senior cabinet secretary, Kato, which I guess will take place around 10 o'clock Japan time. So what is that? 7 p.m. US time on the 23rd, and then 2 p.m. GMT, or 2 a.m. GMT, rather, on the 24th. So anyway, kind of a bummer for Christmas Eve. I guess some of you are going to wake up and see this on Christmas Eve, and as we go into Christmas, but it's a bummer of a year. So I'm going to try to do my best to keep the faith and not freak out. But I guess what I would end this video saying is that if you are freaking out, if you are becoming despondent, if you are becoming hopeless, that is a totally valid and acceptable response to have at this point. this year has beaten the morale out of all of us. And I don't think it does any good to encourage people to be optimistic when all of us have done what we've been supposed to do this whole year. We've all done the right thing. We've all listened to the rules. We've all followed the science, as they say they like to do. And we've all gotten screwed. So what I would say, though, is give yourself the space to worry. Give yourself the space to grieve if you're in the UK and you're going to have to indefinitely delay your journey. But don't become despondent, right? I think that there's a difference between being realistic and fatalistic. And I think there's a difference between rose-colored glasses and just being hopeless and stuck in an existential rut. But anyway, Merry Christmas Eve, even though this isn't a very merry message. And I hope that my next video, if not more optimistic and hopeful, at least has more facts that we can use to understand the reality of this situation, since the Japan travel ban is just going to tell us about the politics. All right, bye.